Okay, explore number six. What role do, sorry about that, change that. Explore number five. How does speciation occur? Go ahead and write that down and set up your Cornell notes. And pause your video. Tell me what you know. Tell me what you think. Okay, hopefully it took a moment to do that. So remember, speciation is the formation of new species. One species um, diverges into a different species, right? And speciation, the thing about species, what makes one species different from another is that there's reproductive isolation. They cannot reproduce with each other for whatever reason. It could be that they're genetically not compatible anymore. It could be that they have different behaviors that they don't respond to each other's ritual behaviors or mating calls, etc. So there can be a number of reasons, but that's the difference between your species. So there's three types of speciation that we talk about. The first one is called sympatric speciation. Uh, and that has to do with the idea that you have several different descendants that came from a single ancestor, and they live in the same area, they live in the same geographical area, but for some reason or another, their behaviors have changed. Maybe there's a genetic reason, maybe there's an ecological reason, but they speciate, they change. And the change doesn't happen quickly, the change happens over time. They give an example in your text of a type of fly that a fruit fly of sorts, and for one reason or another, some fruit flies started to um, lay eggs in nearby apple trees. Basically, within a habitat, there was a different niche, a different food source. Perhaps there was not a lot of competition. And so those flies, their behavior started to change and they start to lay their eggs. And then their descendants also continue to eat off of the apple trees. Eventually, the behaviors had isolated that group from the parent group, and they eventually speciated and became their own species. So that's an example of sympatric speciation. The second example we have is called parapatric speciation. And maybe the best way to think about this is it still happens within relatively the same geographical area, but there's a change in the local habitat. Um, and because there's a change in the local habitat, it causes non random mating to occur. In one of the videos in your text, they show how you have white and brown, some kind of rodent, I forget if it was a rabbit or a mouse, on the mountainside. There was snow on the top of the mountain, so white mice blended in nicely there. And there was brown furry animals down lower where there wasn't snow, and they blended in really well there. Well, that was speciation that had occurred. White animals up in the snow, brown animals in the bottom. But that wasn't the way they originally were. Originally, they were a mixed population. So, in their example, they show how predation, maybe a hawk or an eagle, had seen the white mice on the brown mountainside and ate them. And maybe that same bird saw the brown mice or rabbits up on the white snow and ate them. So eventually, you saw that the predation had produced two kind of distinct groupings, and then those groupings start to mate only with themselves, because that was who is geographically closest to them. And that resulted in a parapatric speciation. And there's some other examples in your text. Uh, the third example is called allopatric speciation, and that has to do usually when you have a physical border, a barrier that separates one group from the other. Maybe you have a river that forms and it divides a population of animals, and they can no longer cross the river. They can't mate with each other. And so over time, they start to speciate and become distinctly different populations. Again, this all is a process that takes time. Okay. So we got a little note here on our side. The allopatric speciation is the most common type of speciation. Of those three that we discussed, allopatric is the most common. Now, at the end of your text, they make a point to discuss sexual selection. We've talked about this before. It is a type of natural selection, but this is chosen more for physical features that appear that are attractive to the opposite sex, to a mate. And so they tend to reproduce, and that trait that was attractive, the alleles for that trait become more and more dominant until they spread throughout the whole population. All right. Well, that's it for our speciation. So take a moment and write your summary paragraph.